Hey guys, Sheephead here with another video from Final Fantasy XIV. Today, and over the next couple of days, we're going to be talking about primal hard modes. I'm going to show you what abilities they have, how to avoid them, and more importantly, how to kill them. So today, we're going to start with Ifrit Hardmode, also known as the Bowl of Embers. So before I start talking about the tactics of the fight, I think it's probably a good idea I explain how you unlock this fight in the first place. Basically, all you need to do is make sure that you finish your main story quest all the way up to the end and you watch the cutscene. After this, you're going to start another quest line in which is going to lead you directly to Ifrit Hardmode. Okay, so let's start talking about the tactic. The first thing I'd like to point out is that this fight is actually in 3 phases. Phase 1 is going to be from 100% of the boss's health to about 50%. At this time, the boss is going to disappear and phase 2 is going to start. This phase requires you to kill the 4 infernal nails in the center of the room. Once this phase is complete, we move on to phase 3, which is from 50% until the boss is dead. Okay, let's start with phase 1. First of all, I'm going to go over the boss abilities, and then we're going to talk about the tactics. So in phase 1, the first ability you need to watch out for is the frontal breath / cleave. As standard per most bosses in this game, you don't want to stand in front of them unless you're the tank. For this reason, if you get hit by this and you're not the tank, it's going to do a lot of damage. It pretty much 1 or 2 shots most people. So for this reason, never stand in front of the boss or really to the sides, as it is about an 80-degree cone. Other than this, when you start the fight, the first thing the tank's going to want to do is go through the boss, start tanking him, and drag him backwards to the very edge of the room, as you guys can see here. It's a very good idea, especially in pug groups, just to give the tank 5-10 seconds worth of no DPS, just so he can get enough threat to move the boss without any problems. The second ability, and this is also going to happen throughout the entire fight, is a knockback called Vulcan Burst. As you guys can see on screen here, the boss does some huge knockback, and it's going to push everyone back about 10 yards, and it's also going to do about 700 damage. This ability does not have a cast bar, so you can never see it coming, and it also can't be interrupted or stunned. So because of this reason, you pretty much, if you're a melee class, you just have to sit there and take it. It's going to knock you back, you just run straight back in. However, if you're a ranged class, you need to basically work out where this is going to be every single time. As you guys can see on screen, I've done this fight so many times that I know roughly about where the safe zone is. So I simply just stand as far away from the boss as possible, and therefore I don't get hit by it. The third ability is also one which continues throughout the entire fight, and is the one ability which makes the fight easy or hard depending on how you deal with it. So this ability is called Eruption, and as you guys can see here, it does have a cast bar, and you can always see it casting. So this ability happens every 20 seconds roughly. When it happens, or when it goes off I should say, the boss is going to target a player and he's going to put this weird fiery looking thing underneath him. If the cast does complete, this circle under the player is going to erupt and it's going to deal about 2000 damage. Now as I said before, this is probably one of the hardest things about this fight. It does do a hell of a lot of damage, and if you have no one who can interrupt it, you're always going to be moving and having to dodge it. Thus your DPS is going to be lower, and so is your healing. It's for these reasons that you should assign an interrupter, preferably a paladin, to interrupt every single eruption that is cast. Now, later on in the boss tactics, I'm going to explain another ability that's going to be able to be interrupted, called Radiant Plume. However, you want to make sure that you do not interrupt this, because if you do, you will get put on diminishing returns, and the boss will start to resist the interrupts on the eruption. Now, as I said previously, this is easily done by the off-tank if you have a paladin. However, it can also be done by other classes as well. Once you're confident in your interrupting ability, there's no longer any reason to move when you see this eruption, and you can just stand there and DPS or continue to heal. So the fourth ability that the boss has doesn't actually have a name, however we're going to call it Charge. Every 1 minute-ish, probably 1 minute 20, the boss is going to jump up into the air and he's going to disappear. A few seconds later, you'll notice that the boss reappears at the edge of the circle in one location. At this point in time, you want to get directly out of the way of the boss. He's going to charge through the center of the room and to the other side. If you get hit by this, it's pretty much going to kill you in one hit, so you definitely need to watch out for it. Now the fifth and final ability for phase 1 only really starts happening at about 70% of the boss's health. You can also see that the boss is going to start using this ability once you see the Succumb to the Inferno chat warning appear on your screen. So this ability is the one that I was talking about earlier, called Radiant Plume. This can be interrupted and it does have a cast bar. So basically, as I said, this ability should never be interrupted, unless you know that the boss is about to jump up into the air and do his charge. So as you can see on screen, this is what the boss ability looks like. It's these massive circles around the edge of the room. Now it actually happens in 2 places in this phase, but it's going to evolve and happen in 3 places in the last phase of the fight. So in this phase, the first time it appears, it's going to be around the outside of the room, and then the second time it appears, shortly after the first, it's going to be in the center of the room. So as you can see, once I see the emote succumb to the Inferno, I'm going to move just slightly into the center of the room. It's because I know that the outside Radiant Plume is coming. As soon as that one finishes, I'm going to then move to the outside of the room because I know that the second plume is coming, which is in the center of the room. By doing this, I know that I'm never going to get hit by the Radiant Plume, and it's all going to be good. Now, once this has happened, the boss is going to fly back up into the sky, or jump I should say, and he's going to go to the charge aspect of the fight. However, this time, instead of there just being one Ifrit, there's going to be two. Now, this mechanic stays exactly the same, except obviously there's two of them. They're both going to go through the center directly in front of them. Now, one thing that I would like to point out is that this ability does evolve as the fight goes on. So for now you have 2 Ifrits, but next time around you could have 3 Ifrits, and luckily that is the cap, so you'll never have more than 3. Also, the best way to avoid these is to know that their left Ifrit, if you're looking directly at them, is going to be the one that moves first. So if you're in a dodgy position, just take a look directly at them, and the one on the left is going to go first. So if you can dodge that one, then you're going to survive to dodge the second one, and the third one. My best advice for this is to pretty much stay out of the center of the room, as you know that all 3 of them dissect the center, and that is a place which is always going to get hit. So try and stay near the walls if possible, and other than that, if you get in a very terrible place, you can stand directly in between 2 of them, as you can see here. Okay, so let's move on to phase 2 of this fight. Phase 2 is really short in comparison to the other 2 phases, and in simple terms, it's just a DPS race. As you can see here, 4 of these infernal nails are going to spawn in the center of the room. It's now your job to DPS these down as soon as possible, otherwise you're going to wipe in the phase transition to phase 3. So the best way to deal with these nails is simply just to use a limit break 3 from a summoner or a black mage. Doing this is going to use AoE on all 4 of the nails, and it's going to put them to about 25% health, leaving the rest of the DPS just to finish them off. However, if you do not have the required limit breaks, then just get your DPS to simply use them on 1 nail at a time. Once these nails are down, the boss is going to jump up into the air and do a huge AoE which does about half HP bar to everyone. Once this has happened, you are now safely into phase 3. So the third phase is pretty much phase 1 over again, except as I said previously, it has some abilities which have changed slightly and added some more stuff. So the first thing that you need to do is reposition the boss back towards the edge of the room. Once you're there, you'll notice that the boss is about to cast Eruption. However, instead of just being on 1 player, now it's going to be on 4 or 5 players. So it is imperative that you interrupt this as soon as it happens. If this goes off, you're going to deal a hell of a lot of damage to the raid, and you're pretty much going to wipe. Shortly after this, the boss is going to jump up, and he's going to come back with 3 Ifrits, as we said earlier. So remember that the left one is going to be the one that moves first, and it's always a good idea to be out of the center towards the side of the room. About 10 seconds after the boss returns, he's going to do the first Radiant Plume, which as you guys know is going to be on the outside of the room. So as you can see here, I'm closer to the center. And then after that, he's going to do the second Radiant Plume, which is in the center. So as you can see, I moved to the outside to avoid this. Now, these next 2 parts are probably the most vital part of phase 3. After he's done the second plume, the center one, he is then going to do an eruption on about 5 players, and this needs to be interrupted. So as you can see here, my raid was really good, and it got interrupted. Now after this one's happened, it's vital that you move to the center of the room, as he's going to do a third Radiant Plume, which is going to cover the entire room apart from the place where Ifrit is standing. It's for this reason that we stack directly behind him, and as soon as we see the space in the plume, we just move to it. After this, the boss is going to cast 1 more group eruption that needs to be interrupted, and after that he's going to jump back up. So other than that guys, it's pretty much just a rinse and repeat from here on out until the boss is dead. Now one thing that I would like to say before I go is that it's a very good idea to save your level 3 limit break that you build up after phase 2. The reason for this is that if you manage to miss the interrupt on the group eruption that comes just as you're moving into the center of the room, then it's going to wipe everyone, seeing as you're all stacked. So it's a good idea that you can save this level 3 limit break, 1, so you can get the boss down, say 5% you use the limit break, or 2, that you save it for a healer's limit break, so you can res the entire party. So guys, that's pretty much the tactics to Ifrit Hardmode, and it's really not that bad of a fight once everyone knows the tactics. If you have any questions or suggestions about this video or the tactic itself, then please put them in the comment section below and I will reply to every single comment that gets posted on this video. Other than that, if you like this video, then please hit the thumbs up button and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the content that I have here pretty much daily on Final Fantasy XIV Around Reborn. Now, I will be uploading a video tomorrow in which I'm going to be covering the next Primal Hard mode, which is Garuda Hard mode, which is a lot harder than this boss, as the tactic is a lot more complex. So make sure you check out that video if you're stuck on that fight. Other than that guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you tomorrow. Now, moving on to the second boss in the instance, this is called the Demon Wall. It's probably the most fun boss in here. I really enjoy it. However, it seems to cause a little bit of trouble with some people who've never done it before, so therefore we'll call it the hardest boss as well. So this boss has 3 main abilities. The first one you can see here on screen is these void zones. Now they're going to spawn in a specific pattern, and pretty much you're just going to want to make sure that you're never in these void zones. They're only going to be there for a couple of seconds at a time, and once that one disappears you can move directly into the safe zone of the next one. So as you can see, the first one is going to spawn in the center, thus the safe zone is either the left or the right. Once that one disappears, you're going to want to move in